There's a reason this psalm begins with the words, "I lift my eyes to the mountains." Not because mountains are pretty, not because nature is calming, but because when you're standing in a valley in ancient Israel after dark, surrounded by stone and shadow, and you hear something moving in the rocks above you, your whole body understands what it means to need a watcher, to need eyes that see what you cannot see, to need protection you cannot provide yourself. Tonight, you're in a different kind of valley. The mountains are made of deadlines and diagnoses and decisions you can't unmake, and you're about to hear the same promise that's been keeping people alive and sane and able to close their eyes for 3,000 years. You clicked on this video because something inside you is tired. Not just physically tired, but tired of carrying the weight of vigilance. Tired of being your own protector, your own problem solver, your own night watchman. Modern sleep advice tells you to let go and release control, but they never tell you where to place that burden when you set it down. That's why those techniques leave you feeling more alone, not less. This video offers something radically different. It doesn't teach you to empty your mind. It teaches you to fill your awareness with the specific truth your nervous system needs to hear in order to surrender into rest. Psalm 121 is not a lullaby. It's a systematic deconstruction of every fear that keeps you awake, answered line by line with the same promise. You are being watched over by something that never sleeps, never fails, and sees every danger before it reaches you. The core misunderstanding this addresses is this: you think you can't sleep because you're anxious. But the truth is deeper. You can't sleep because at some primal level, you don't believe it's safe to stop watching for danger. This psalm was written for people living in literal survival conditions who still needed to close their eyes at night. It worked for them, and tonight, it's going to work for you. What makes this different from common advice is that we're not asking you to trust the universe or surrender to the void. We're asking you to do something far more specific. To let your mind rest on 6 distinct concrete promises: protection from above and below, from night and day, from coming and going, now and forever, until your body believes, at last, that you can stop being your own guardian for the next 8 hours. This is not spirituality as escapism. This is spirituality as the only thing strong enough to give your hyper-vigilant mind permission to rest. Now let me take you somewhere. Imagine you're traveling through ancient Judea. It's twilight. You're on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, walking through a mountain pass where the road narrows between cliffs. The sun drops behind the ridge, and suddenly the temperature falls, and the shadows deepen, and you realize something that makes your stomach tighten. I'm not going to make it to the city before dark. And in that moment, everything changes. Because darkness in the ancient world wasn't just the absence of light. It was the arrival of vulnerability. Predators hunted at night. Bandits worked in shadow. A twisted ankle in the dark could mean death by exposure. And here you are, alone, surrounded by stone, with miles still to go. The temperature keeps dropping. You can feel it on your arms now. That kind of cold that seeps through fabric and makes you aware of how small you are. How exposed. The path ahead of you is barely visible. The rocks on either side rise up like walls, and you can't see what's beyond them or above them. Every sound gets amplified. A pebble skittering down from somewhere overhead makes you freeze. Was that an animal? Was that a person? Your heart starts doing that thing where it beats a little faster, a little harder, and you realize your breathing has changed too. Shallower, more alert. You're scanning the shadows now, trying to see into darkness that won't give up its secrets. Your ears are straining for any sound that might tell you what's out there. What's watching you? What's waiting? And here's what you notice about yourself in this moment. You cannot make yourself calm down. You've tried taking deep breaths. You've tried telling yourself there's probably nothing there. You've tried reasoning with your fear. But your body doesn't care about your reasoning. Your body is responding to reality. You are vulnerable. You are alone. You are in danger. And no amount of positive thinking is going to change that. This is when the psalmist writes, "I lift my eyes to the mountains." Where does my help come from? Not as a poetic flourish, as an actual survival question. Where? From what source? Who's watching? Because in this moment, you understand with complete clarity that you need help outside yourself. You need eyes that can see in the dark. You need strength beyond your own. You need a protector you didn't have to become. And this is the moment I need you to understand. Every single person listening to this video right now is standing in their own version of that valley. Your mountains look different. They're made of medical bills or relationship ruptures or career crossroads or grief that won't lift. But the core terror is identical. You're in a narrow place. Darkness is falling, and you don't know if you have what it takes to make it through the night alone. Maybe your valley is financial. You're looking at numbers that don't add up and deadlines that are approaching and you don't see a way through. And every night when you lie down, your mind goes immediately to those numbers, to the bills, to the phone calls you're dreading, to the possibility of losing everything you've worked for. And you try to plan, you try to strategize, you try to figure out how you're going to survive this. But the plans don't come together. The strategies feel flimsy, and you're left staring into the darkness, wondering how you're going to make it. Or maybe your valley is relational. Someone you love is slipping away and you don't know how to hold on to them. Or someone you loved has already left, and the grief is so heavy you don't know how you're still breathing. And every night when you lie down, the emptiness of the bed or the silence of the house or the weight of the loneliness presses in, and you wonder if you're ever going to feel whole again. You wonder if you're going to spend the rest of your life missing someone who's not coming back. And you try to accept it. You try to move on. You try to tell yourself it's going to be okay, but your heart doesn't believe you. Your heart is still in that moment when everything fell apart, and you don't know how to get it to the other side. Or maybe your valley is physical. Your body is betraying you. Pain that won't stop. Illness that won't heal. A diagnosis that changed everything. And every night when you lie down, you're hyper-aware of your body, of what it's doing, of what it's not doing, of whether you're getting worse, of whether tomorrow is going to be harder than today. And you try to trust the doctors, you try to trust the treatment. You try to trust that your body is going to fight this. But trust is so hard when you're the one living inside the body that's struggling. When you're the one who has to wake up every morning and face the reality that you're not who you used to be, that you can't do what you used to do, that the future you imagined is not the future you're getting. Or maybe your valley is existential. You're facing the bigness of life and it's crushing you. You're aware of time passing and opportunities closing and the fact that you're going to die someday, and so is everyone you love. And every night when you lie down, you're confronted with questions that have no answers. What's the point? What does any of this mean? Am I making the right choices? Am I wasting my life? Am I missing something important? And you try to distract yourself. You try to focus on the daily tasks and the small joys and the practical realities. But the questions don't go away. They just wait, and when the world goes quiet, they come rushing back. And you're alone with the vastness of existence, and you feel so small. Whatever your valley is, the psalm meets you there. It doesn't minimize it. It doesn't tell you it's not that bad. It doesn't give you toxic positivity or empty reassurance. It starts by acknowledging the reality. You're in a valley. You're surrounded by mountains. Darkness is falling. You need help. The question is, where is that help going to come from? And the answer is not from your strength, not from your wisdom, not from your ability to hold it all together. The psalm answers, "My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth." Not from my strength, not from my strategy, from the one who architected the entire system, who knows every stone in this path because he set them there. Let me tell you what happens in that valley when you hear those words. Your eyes are still scanning the darkness. Your body is still tense, but something shifts. Because the question wasn't rhetorical. Where does my help come from? And the answer isn't abstract. It's naming a source, the maker of heaven and earth. the one who knows how mountains form, who knows every cave and crevice, who sees in darkness like you see in daylight, who doesn't need a torch because he is the source of all light. When you name the source of your help out loud in that valley, you're not pretending the danger isn't real. You're not pretending you're not afraid. You're doing something much more subversive. You're admitting that your vigilance has limits, that your eyes can only see so far, that your strength can only carry you so long, and that's okay. Because the watching you're trying to do is already being done by someone who doesn't have your limitations. I want you to feel this. You're standing there in the cold, in the growing dark, and you say it out loud. My help comes from the Lord. And maybe your voice shakes a little. Maybe you don't even fully believe it yet, but you say it anyway because what else is there to say? What other source is there? Your own resourcefulness, that's running out. Your own courage, that's fraying at the edges. Your own ability to stay alert and anticipate every threat. You're already exhausted from trying. So you say it, and you take a step forward, and then another, and the darkness doesn't lift. The cold doesn't warm, but you're moving again, because you've named a watcher, and somewhere deep in your nervous system, something unclenches just a fraction. Not because the threat is gone, but because the burden of solo vigilance has been split. You're not carrying this alone anymore. You're walking with the awareness that there are eyes on you, that there's a presence with you, that the maker of heaven and earth, the one who set the sun and moon in their courses, the one who knows the number of stars and calls them each by name, that one is watching your path, is seeing the stones you can't see, is aware of the threats before they materialize, is 10 steps ahead of every danger. And that changes everything. Not because you're suddenly safe from all harm, but because you're not alone in the vigilance anymore. This is what Psalm 121 is offering you tonight. Not the removal of your valley, not the erasure of your mountains, but the presence of a watcher who sees what you cannot see and never stops watching so that you can finally stop. Now I want to tell you about a mother. Picture her. It's 2 a.m. Her child is in the next room, sick. Not critically, but enough that she can't quite relax. She's been up 3 times already. Each time she checks. Breathing? Yes. Fever? Still there, but not worse. Skin clammy or dry? Somewhere in between. And she comes back to bed, but she doesn't sleep because part of her is still listening, still ready, still on guard. Her husband is asleep beside her. He's a good father. He loves their child, but he's asleep because he can, because his nervous system allows it, because somehow his wiring is different. And she doesn't resent him for it exactly, but she does feel the weight of being the one who cannot turn it off, the one whose ears are tuned to every cough, every shift in breathing, every small sound from the other room. This mother is not unusual. She's not neurotic. She's not overprotective. She's simply a mother doing what mothers have done for millennia, keeping watch, staying alert, being ready. Because in the ancient world, this vigilance was the difference between life and death. A mother who didn't notice when her child's breathing changed, who didn't wake when her child cried out, who didn't stay attuned to the subtle signals of danger, that mother lost her child. So the mothers who survived, who passed on their genes, who became the ancestors of everyone alive today, those mothers were the ones who couldn't turn it off, who stayed vigilant, who sacrificed their own rest for the safety of their young. This mother is the culmination of thousands of generations of women who loved their children enough to stay awake. But here's the problem. We're not in the ancient world anymore. Her child is not being stalked by predators. The dangers are different now, smaller, less immediate. But her nervous system doesn't know that. Her nervous system is still running the same program that kept her ancestors alive. Stay alert. Watch for threats. Don't rest until you're sure it's safe. And it's never sure it's safe, because safety in the nervous system is not a logical conclusion. It's a felt sense. And her felt sense is screaming that if she stops watching, something terrible will happen. Now imagine someone comes to her and says, "You need to let go. You need to release control. Just relax." How would that land? She'd look at them like they were insane, because she can't let go, not because she's controlling, but because she's a mother, and that's what love looks like. Vigilance is not her problem. Vigilance is her glory. The problem is that she's human, and humans cannot watch forever. Do you see it? She's not broken. Her love is not dysfunctional. Her attentiveness is not pathology. She's doing exactly what a mother is designed to do. The issue is that the job she's trying to do, being the all-seeing, never-sleeping guardian of her child's well-being, is a job that requires capacities she does not have. She needs to sleep. Her body is screaming for sleep. But she can't give herself permission because giving herself permission feels like abandoning her post, like being a bad mother, like failing at the one thing that matters most. Here's what Psalm 121 understands that most sleep advice doesn't. You cannot turn off your vigilance by willpower. You can only transfer it to a watcher you trust more than you trust yourself. The psalm says, "He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep." This is not poetic language. This is a job transfer. It's saying the watching you've been doing, it's already being done by someone who doesn't get tired, by someone who sees through darkness, by someone who never blinks. What if the reason you can't sleep isn't because you're broken, but because you're trying to do a job that was never meant to be yours alone? Let me go deeper into this mother's experience because I think it's your experience too. Even if you're not a literal mother, even if you don't have children, this vigilance, this sense that if you stop paying attention, something terrible will happen. This is universal. It's the human condition under the weight of love and responsibility. So she's lying there at 2 in the morning, and her mind is doing what minds do. It's running scenarios. What if the fever spikes? What if it's not just a cold? What if I'm missing something? What if I should take her to the emergency room? But what if I'm overreacting? What if I'm one of those anxious mothers who can't tell the difference between normal childhood illness and real danger? And underneath all of that is the deeper question. The question she would never say out loud because it sounds too vulnerable, too dramatic. What if something happens and I'm asleep? What if the one moment my child needs me is the moment I'm not watching? This is the fear beneath the fear. It's not really about the fever. It's about the unbearable possibility of failure, of not being enough, of the universe revealing that you are not, in fact, capable of protecting the things you love most. And here's the thing. That fear is not irrational, because she's right. She can't protect her child from everything. She can't see every danger. She can't be awake every hour. She is not omniscient. She is not omnipotent. She is not God. And that's exactly the point. The psalmist is saying, "He who watches over you will not slumber." Not, "You must never slumber." Not, "If you're faithful enough, strong enough, vigilant enough, you won't need sleep." The opposite. The one who watches over you doesn't slumber so that you can. He stays awake so you can rest. He sees through the darkness so you can close your eyes. Imagine someone coming to this mother at 2 in the morning and saying, "I'm taking the next shift. I'm going to watch. I'm not going to sleep. I see everything you see and more. And if anything changes, anything at all, I will wake you. But until then, your job is to rest. Not because your child doesn't need watching, but because the watching is covered." What do you think happens in her body when she hears that? When she believes it? Her shoulders drop. Her jaw unclenches. Her breathing deepens, not because the threat is gone. Her child is still sick. The fever is still there. But the burden of being the solo watcher has been lifted. She can sleep now. Not because she cares less, but because someone she trusts is caring in her place. This is what Psalm 121 is offering you. Not the erasure of your responsibilities, not the elimination of real dangers, but the transfer of vigilance to a watcher who never needs relief, who never gets tired, who never misses anything. And I know what you're thinking, because I've thought it too. That sounds nice. That sounds comforting. But how do I actually believe it? How do I trust something I can't see? How do I hand over the watching when my entire nervous system is built around the assumption that if I stop watching, everything falls apart? That's a fair question. And the psalm anticipates it, because the rest of Psalm 121 is not vague reassurance. It's not just, don't worry, God's got this. It's specific. It's concrete. It names exactly what the watcher is watching for, and exactly how the protection works. And that specificity is what allows your nervous system to finally exhale. Let me show you something about how anxiety works. Anxiety is your brain's threat detection system on overdrive. It's constantly scanning for danger, constantly running simulations, constantly asking, what could go wrong? And the problem is, there's always an answer to that question. Something could always go wrong. So anxiety never runs out of material. It just keeps generating scenarios. And each scenario feels urgent. Each one demands your attention. Each one insists that you need to do something right now to prevent disaster. And so you do. You plan. You worry. You strategize. You try to think of every possible outcome and prepare for it. And maybe you succeed. Maybe you prevent something bad from happening. But you'll never know, because you can't know what would have happened if you hadn't worried. So your anxiety takes credit. See? It's a good thing we stayed vigilant. Who knows what would have happened if we'd let our guard down? And the cycle continues. The anxiety generates a threat. You respond to the threat. The threat doesn't materialize. The anxiety claims vindication, and you're left believing that your vigilance is the only thing keeping disaster at bay. But here's the truth. Most of the threats your anxiety generates are not real. They're possibilities, hypotheticals, things that could happen but probably won't. And even the ones that are real, that do happen, you can't always prevent them by worrying. Sometimes bad things happen despite your vigilance. Sometimes the thing you were afraid of comes true, and you have to deal with it. And sometimes the thing that goes wrong is something you never anticipated, something your anxiety never put on the list. So all that vigilance, all that worry, all that loss of sleep, it didn't actually make you safer. It just made you more exhausted. This is what I need you to understand. Your anxiety is not protecting you. It's pretending to protect you. It's giving you the illusion of control in a world that is fundamentally uncertain. And that illusion comes at a cost. The cost of your peace, the cost of your rest, the cost of your ability to be present in your own life. Because when you're always scanning for threats, you're never actually here. You're never fully in the moment. You're always 10 steps ahead, imagining disasters, preparing defenses, trying to outthink the universe. And meanwhile, your life is happening, right now, in this moment, and you're missing it. Because you're too busy trying to protect a future that hasn't arrived yet. So what's the alternative? The alternative is not to stop caring. It's not to become reckless or irresponsible. It's not to ignore real dangers. The alternative is to recognize that there's a difference between your responsibility and God's responsibility. Your responsibility is to do the next right thing in front of you, to show up, to be faithful, to love the people in your care, to use the wisdom and resources you have, to take reasonable precautions, to address actual problems when they arise. That's your part. God's responsibility is everything else. The outcomes, the timing, the big picture, the things beyond your control, the threats you can't see, the futures you can't predict. That's His part. And when you try to take on His part, when you try to control outcomes and predict futures and see all threats, that's when you can't sleep, because you're trying to carry something you were never built to carry. Let's break down exactly what your mind needs to hear to let go. The psalm gives you 6 anchors, 6 specific promises, and each one targets a different category of fear, a different way your vigilance manifests. This is not random. This is systematic. This is a deconstruction of anxiety itself. The first anchor is this: He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. This is vertical protection and ground-level protection at the same time. It's saying two things. From above, you are seen. Someone is looking down at the path you're walking and seeing the loose stones, the hidden holes, the places where your foot might catch. And from below, the ground itself is being held. You're not going to fall through. You're not going to slip into some abyss. The terrain is being stabilized beneath you. Why does your mind need to hear this? Because one of the core anxieties that keeps you awake is the fear of sudden disaster. The fear that you're going to take a step tomorrow and the ground is going to give way. You're going to lose your job. You're going to get a diagnosis. Someone you love is going to leave. Something is going to break that you can't fix. And you lie awake at night trying to anticipate every possible place the ground might collapse so you can avoid it. But the promise is not that you'll never take a wrong step. The promise is that even your wrong steps are seen. Even your stumbles are caught. He will not let your foot slip. Not because you're perfectly careful, but because the watcher is. Think about what it means to slip. A slip is sudden, unexpected. One moment you're stable and the next moment you're falling. You don't see it coming. You can't prepare for it. It just happens. And that's what you're afraid of. The sudden loss. The unexpected blow. The thing that comes out of nowhere and changes everything. You're afraid that life is going to pull the rug out from under you, and you're going to fall, and there won't be anyone there to catch you. But the promise is, He will not let your foot slip. Not. You will never encounter loose ground. Not. The path will always be smooth. But, when you do encounter unstable terrain, when the ground does shift beneath you, you will not fall. Because I'm watching, and I'm faster than your fall. There's a story in the Gospel of Matthew where Peter tries to walk on water toward Jesus. And for a moment, he does. He's actually walking on the surface of the sea. But then he notices the wind and the waves and he starts to sink, and he cries out, "Lord, save me." And immediately, it says, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. Immediately. Not after Peter had struggled for a while. Not after Peter had proved he was trying hard enough. Immediately. The moment Peter started to slip, the hand was already there. This is the first anchor. You don't have to watch the ground beneath you because it's already being watched. And if you do start to slip, the hand is faster than your fall. Now let me take this deeper, because there's another kind of slipping that you're afraid of. Not just physical slipping. Not just external disasters, but internal slipping. The fear that you're going to lose your grip on yourself. That you're going to slip into depression or despair or some kind of breakdown. That your mind is going to betray you. That one morning you're going to wake up and you won't be able to get out of bed. That you're going to slip into a darkness you can't climb out of. And this fear is even more terrifying than the fear of external disaster. Because at least with external disaster, there's something to fight against, something outside yourself. But when the threat is internal, when the danger is your own mind, where do you turn? How do you protect yourself from yourself? And the promise is the same. He will not let your foot slip. Not just your physical foot, your whole being, your mental stability, your emotional equilibrium, your capacity to keep going. All of it is being watched. All of it is being held. You're not going to slip into a place where you can't be reached. You're not going to fall so far that you can't be caught. Because the watcher sees internal terrain the same way he sees external terrain. He sees the loose stones in your mind, the unstable ground in your heart, the places where you're most likely to stumble, and he's already there, already bracing, already ready to catch. Does this mean you'll never struggle? No. Does this mean you'll never have hard days or dark nights or moments when you wonder if you can keep going? No. But it means you won't slip beyond reach. You won't fall beyond catching. Even in your darkest moments, even when you feel like you're losing your grip, the grip on you doesn't loosen. He who watches over you will not slumber. Not just when you're strong, not just when you're doing well. When you're weak, when you're struggling, when you're barely holding on, that's when the watching matters most. That's when you need to know that someone else is alert, is attentive, is ready to catch you if you fall. The second anchor is this: the sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. This is protection from the elements that govern time. The sun represents everything that happens in the visible hours. The things you can see coming. The pressures of the day, the demands, the expectations, the heat of stress and labor, and all the things you have to face. When the world is awake and watching you, the moon represents the opposite. Everything that happens in the hidden hours, the things you can't see, the fears that show up in the dark, the intrusive thoughts, the what-ifs, the memories that only surface when there's no distraction, the grief that waits until you're alone, and the promise is that neither of them will harm you. Not the day with all its visibility and exposure, not the night with all its shadows and unknowns. Both are under the same watch. Both are governed by the same protector. Why does this matter? Because your anxiety splits itself between these two domains. During the day, you worry about the things you can see, the email you have to send, the conversation you have to have, the deadline approaching, the person who's upset with you, all the visible threats. And you think, if I can just get through today, I'll be okay. But then night comes, and in the night, a different set of fears emerges. The ones you can't solve with action, the ones that don't have a clear solution, the existential ones, the mortality ones, the what does any of this mean ones. And you realize there's no time when you're not afraid. Day brings one kind of fear. Night brings another. You're just moving between two different modes of vigilance. But the psalm is saying, both are covered. The sun will not harm you by day. The moon will not harm you by night. You don't have to defend yourself against time itself. The visible hours and the hidden hours are both in the care of the one who set them in motion, the one who created day and night in the first place. Let me talk about the sun for a moment. In the ancient world, the sun was both giver of life and potential destroyer. Too much sun, and you died. Heat stroke, dehydration, sunburn that turned into infection. The sun was not gentle, it was fierce. And if you were caught without shade, without water, without protection, the sun would kill you. So when the psalmist says, the sun will not harm you by day, this is not a small promise. This is a promise of protection from something that has the power to destroy. The day, with all its demands and pressures and expectations, will not destroy you. The heat of it will not consume you. You will survive the daylight hours, not because the day is easy, but because there's a shade, there's a covering, there's protection. Now think about what your days are like, the demands that come at you from the moment you wake up, the expectations, the responsibilities, the things that have to get done, the people who need you, the problems that need solving, the decisions that need making. It's relentless. And you try to keep up. You try to be enough. You try to meet every demand, fulfill every expectation, solve every problem. But you can't. You're one person. You have limits. You have a finite amount of energy, a finite amount of time, a finite amount of capacity. And the day keeps asking for more than you have to give. And you lie awake at night, thinking about all the things you didn't get done, all the ways you fell short, all the people you disappointed, all the problems that are still unsolved. And you feel the heat of it, the pressure, the weight, the sense that if you don't do more, be more, achieve more, something terrible is going to happen. But the promise is, the sun will not harm you by day. The demands of the day will not destroy you. The pressure will not crush you. The heat will not consume you. Because there's a shade. And the shade is not something you have to create. The shade is God Himself. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. He's standing between you and the heat. He's absorbing the intensity. He's providing the covering. And that means you can do what you can do, and it will be enough. You don't have to do more than you're capable of. You don't have to be more than you are. You don't have to meet every demand and fulfill every expectation and solve every problem. You can do your part. And the rest is held by the one who's providing the shade. Now, let's talk about the moon. In the ancient world, the moon was mysterious. It appeared and disappeared according to cycles no one fully understood. It changed shape. It seemed to govern things beyond human control. The tides, the seasons, women's cycles. There was even a belief that the moon could affect the mind, could drive people to madness, which is where we get the word lunatic. So when the psalmist says, "The moon will not harm you by night," this is addressing the fear of forces beyond your understanding. The fear that something you can't predict, can't explain, can't manage, is going to undo you. The fear of losing your mind. The fear of being overtaken by something you didn't see coming and couldn't have prepared for. And the promise is, even that is watched. Even the uncontrollable things. Even the cycles you don't understand. Even the influences you can't trace. All of it is seen and governed by the one who set the moon in its place. Now, think about your nights. What happens when the world goes quiet and you're alone with your thoughts? What rises up in the darkness? For many people, it's the same fears night after night. The fear of dying, the fear of losing someone they love, the fear that their life doesn't matter, the fear that they've made all the wrong choices, the fear that it's too late to change, the fear that they're going to end up alone. These are not daytime fears. You can't solve them with action. You can't fix them with planning. They're bigger than that. They're existential. They're about the nature of existence itself, about meaning and mortality, and the vastness of time and the fragility of everything you hold dear. And these fears come at night because night is when your defenses are down. During the day, you can distract yourself. You can stay busy. You can focus on the tasks in front of you. But at night, there's nothing between you and the big questions. Nothing between you and the reality of your own mortality. Nothing between you and the awareness that everything you love is temporary. Everyone you cherish is going to die, including you. And what then? What does any of this mean if it all ends? And these thoughts can spiral. They can take on a life of their own. They can grow until they feel unbearable, until you're lying there at 3 a.m. wondering if you're losing your mind, wondering if this is what it feels like to come apart. But the promise is, the moon will not harm you by night. The mystery will not undo you. The questions you can't answer will not destroy you. The forces you can't control will not overtake you. Because even the moon is under God's governance. Even the cycles you don't understand are known to Him. Even the existential terror that visits you in the dark is held in a larger reality. A reality where there is meaning, where there is purpose, where your life matters, where death is not the end, where the big questions have answers even if you don't know them yet. The third anchor is this: the Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. This is positional protection. It's saying God is not distant. He's not watching from some far-off throne. He's at your right hand. The right hand in ancient culture was the dominant hand. The hand you fight with, the hand you work with, the hand you reach with. So God is positioned at the place of your action, at the place of your agency, not behind you where you can't see Him, not somewhere you have to turn around to find. Right there, at your side, providing shade. Shade in a desert climate is not a luxury. It's survival. Without shade, the sun kills you. It's the difference between life and death. And the image here is that God Himself is functioning as your covering, as the thing that stands between you and the elements that would destroy you. Why does this matter for sleep? Because part of what keeps you Awake is the feeling of exposure. The feeling that you're out in the open with no covering, no protection, no buffer between you and all the things that could go wrong. You feel naked, vulnerable, like there's nothing between your tender, breakable self and the harsh realities of the world. But the promise is, you're not exposed. There's a covering, and it's not something you have to construct or maintain. It's God Himself. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. This is intimate protection. This is not a distant deity managing the universe from afar. This is immediate presence. This is, I'm right here. I'm closer than you think. I'm between you and the heat, between you and the harm. And notice it says at your right hand, not at your left, not behind, at the hand you use, at the place where you engage with the world. This is protection that moves with you, that stays positioned no matter where you go or what you do. You don't have to stay in one place to be safe. The shade goes with you. Think about what it's like to walk in the desert sun without shade. The heat is oppressive. It beats down on you. It drains you. It makes every step harder. Your mouth gets dry. Your head starts to pound. Your vision blurs. And you know that if you don't find shade soon, you're not going to make it. The sun is going to kill you. But then you see it, a rock formation, a tree, something that casts a shadow, and you move toward it. And the moment you step into that shadow, everything changes. The heat is still there. The sun is still fierce, but you're protected from the direct assault of it. You're covered, and suddenly you can breathe again. You can think again. You can keep going. This is what God's presence does. The harsh realities of life don't disappear. The threats don't vanish. The pressures don't stop. But you're covered. There's something between you and the full force of it. And that covering makes all the difference. It's the difference between being destroyed and being able to endure. Between collapsing and being able to take the next step. Between giving up and being able to keep going. And the covering is not your own strength. It's not your own resilience. It's not your own ability to tough it out. The covering is God's presence. God positioning Himself between you and the heat. And that presence is at your right hand. It's with you. It moves with you. You don't have to go find it. It's already there. The fourth anchor builds on this. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. This is comprehensive protection, not just from specific threats, from all harm. This is the promise that's hardest to believe because we know, we've experienced, that harm finds us. Bad things happen. People we love die. Relationships end. Bodies break down. So what does it mean that He will keep you from all harm? I think it means something deeper than we usually assume. I think it's saying that the ultimate harm, the harm that could actually destroy you, the harm that could separate you from love itself, that harm cannot reach you. Circumstances can wound you. Loss can devastate you. Pain can visit you. But the core of who you are, the part of you that is held in God's sight, that part cannot be harmed. There's a passage in Romans that says nothing can separate us from the love of God. Not death, not life, not angels, not demons, not the present, not the future, not anything in all creation. And I think that's what this means. He will keep you from all harm. Not because nothing bad will ever happen to you, but because nothing bad can touch the part of you that matters most. You can lose things. You can go through terrible things. But you cannot lose yourself. You cannot lose the thing that makes you you. Because that is held somewhere beyond the reach of circumstance. And when you're lying awake at 3 a.m. imagining every possible disaster, this is what you need to hear. The worst thing you can imagine, the thing you're most afraid of, even if it happened, it still couldn't destroy you. Because the core of your being is watched over by God Himself, and that's a kind of protection that doesn't depend on circumstances going your way. Let me be really clear about this because I don't want to offer false comfort. I'm not saying that if you believe hard enough, nothing bad will happen to you. That's not true. Bad things happen to people of faith all the time. People who love God get sick. People who pray lose their jobs. People who trust get betrayed. People who are faithful experience devastating loss. The promise is not immunity from suffering. The promise is preservation through suffering. The harm that the psalm is talking about is not the harm of painful circumstances. It's the harm of ultimate destruction. The harm of being separated from God's love. The harm of losing your soul. The harm of being undone so completely that there's nothing left. And that harm, that ultimate destruction, that cannot happen to you, because your life is hidden with Christ in God, because the core of who you are is held in a place that circumstances cannot reach, because even death itself cannot separate you from the love that is holding you. So yes, you might lose your job, you might get sick, you might go through a divorce, you might bury someone you love, you might face things that feel like they're going to kill you, but they won't. You will survive, not because you're strong enough, but because the life in you, the eternal life, the life that is your true self, that life is protected by God Himself, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can take it from you. This is the hope, not that you'll avoid suffering, but that you'll survive it, that you'll come through the other side, that even the things that break you won't ultimately destroy you, because the Watcher is watching not just your circumstances but your soul, and your soul is safe, your soul is held, your soul is protected from all harm. The fifth anchor is perhaps the most overlooked, and also the most needed. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. This is protection over transitions, over thresholds, over the in-between places. Most of us think of safety as something that exists in stable states. When I'm home, I'm safe. When I'm at work, I know what to expect. When I'm in a routine, I can relax. But what about the transitions? What about leaving and arriving? What about starting and stopping? What about the moments when you're neither here nor there? Those are the moments that spike your anxiety. The moments of change. The moments when you don't know what's coming next. The moments when you have to let go of what was and reach for what's ahead, and for a second, you're holding on to nothing. Bedtime is one of those moments. Think about it. Going to sleep is a daily transition from consciousness to unconsciousness, from control to surrender, from knowing what's happening to not knowing. You have to let go of your grip on the day. You have to release your monitoring of your environment. You have to trust that you'll wake up again. That's a threshold, and thresholds are terrifying for anxious minds. But the promise is, the Lord will watch over your coming and going. Not just your being, your moving, your transitioning. The times when you're between states, the times when you're most vulnerable because you're not planted anywhere yet. This is huge. This is saying that God doesn't just protect you when you're settled. He protects you in the unsettled moments. In fact, He might be most present in those moments because those are the moments when you're most aware of your need. Every time you close your eyes to sleep, you're practicing death. You're rehearsing letting go. You're surrendering consciousness. And some part of you knows this. Some part of you resists it. Because what if you don't come back? What if this transition is permanent? What if this is the time you let go and there's nothing on the other side? And the psalm says, you're coming and going. Both are watched. You will go into sleep, and you will come back out of it. The transition in both directions is covered, now and forevermore. Think about all the other transitions in your life. The transition from single to married or from married to single. The transition from having parents alive to being an orphan. The transition from health to illness or from one stage of life to another. The transition from having a purpose to feeling lost. The transition from believing you know what you're doing to realizing you have no idea. These transitions are disorienting. They're scary because you're in between. You're not who you were, but you're not yet who you're becoming. You're in the liminal space, the neither here nor there space, and that space feels dangerous. It feels like anything could happen. like you could get lost in the in-between and never make it to the other side. But the promise is that the watcher is there in the in-between, that your transitions are covered, that you're not alone in the threshold, that the coming and the going, the leaving and the arriving, the dying to what was and the birth of what's next, all of it is watched over. You're not going to get lost. You're not going to fall through the cracks. You're not going to disappear in the transition. Because God is the God of thresholds. He's the God who meets you at the edge of what you know and walks with you into what you don't know. He's the God who says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned." Not, "You won't pass through waters." Not, "You won't walk through fire." But, "When you do, I'll be with you." The transition won't destroy you, because I'm watching your coming and going. Now and forevermore. That's the sixth anchor. This is eternal protection. This is the promise that the watching doesn't expire. It doesn't have an end date. It's not contingent on your performance or your faithfulness or your ability to keep believing. It's now and forevermore. Why does this matter? Because part of your anxiety is the fear that the good things don't last. That even if you're okay right now, eventually the protection will run out. Eventually God will get tired of you. Eventually you'll exhaust His patience or His grace or His attention. Eventually you'll be on your own. And the Psalm says, no, now and forevermore. This doesn't run out. This doesn't expire. This isn't dependent on your ability to maintain it. The watching is permanent. There's a passage in Hebrews that says Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Not that He's static or unchanging in the sense of being lifeless, but that He's constant, reliable, not fickle, not moody, not here one day and gone the next, the same. And that constancy is what your nervous system is desperate for, because everything else in your life is unstable. Jobs change, health changes, relationships change, your own emotions and thoughts change from hour to hour. Nothing is fixed, nothing is certain. Except this, the watching is the same, yesterday, today, and forever. Now and forevermore. That's the ground under the ground. That's the stability under all the instability. So let me bring all 6 of these anchors together. Let me show you how they work as a system. Because when you're lying in bed unable to sleep, your mind is spinning through a catalog of fears, and each one of these anchors addresses a specific entry in that catalog. You're afraid you're going to make a mistake tomorrow that ruins everything. He will not let your foot slip. You're afraid the daytime pressures are going to crush you, or the nighttime fears are going to undo you. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. You're afraid you're exposed and vulnerable with no protection. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. You're afraid something is going to happen that will destroy you. He will watch over your life and keep you from all harm. You're afraid of the transition, of letting go, of the threshold between waking and sleeping. He watches over your coming and going. You're afraid this won't last, that eventually you'll be abandoned, now and forevermore. Do you see it? This is not vague comfort. This is targeted intervention. This is a systematic response to every category of fear your mind can generate. And the repetition is intentional. The psalm is not being redundant. It's being thorough. It's making sure every door your anxiety tries to open gets closed by a specific promise. And here's the thing about promises. They only work if you believe the one making them. You can say soothing words to yourself all day, but if you don't trust the source, they're just noise. So, who is making these promises? The maker of heaven and earth, the one who set the sun and moon in motion, the one who knows every stone and every path because He formed them, the one who doesn't slumber or sleep because He doesn't need to, because He's not limited by the things that limit you. That's why the psalm begins by naming the source. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth, not from a philosophy, not from a technique, not from my own ability to think positive thoughts, from the source of all existence, from the one who has the power to back up every promise he makes. And this is where we get to the paradox of surrender. Because you can't relax by trying to relax. You've already discovered that. The more you try to force yourself to calm down, the more agitated you become. The more you tell yourself to let go, the tighter you grip. But Psalm 121 doesn't ask you to try. It asks you to notice, to lift your eyes, to see that the watching is already happening, that the guard is already posted, that the protection you've been white-knuckling your way toward providing for yourself is already, actively, in place. This is the difference between effort and recognition. Effort says, I have to make myself safe. Recognition says, I am already safe. I just haven't noticed yet. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're a child and you're afraid of the dark. You're in your room at night and every shadow looks like a monster and every creak sounds like someone breaking in. You're terrified, and you're trying so hard to be brave. You're telling yourself, there's nothing there. Don't be scared. Just go to sleep. But it's not working, because trying to talk yourself out of fear doesn't actually address the fear. It just adds another layer. Now you're afraid, and you're frustrated with yourself for being afraid. But then your parent comes in, and they sit on the edge of your bed, and they say, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay until you fall asleep, and I'll keep listening even after you're asleep. If anything happens, anything at all, I'll be here. What happens in your body when you hear that? You stop trying. You stop efforting. Because the trying was never going to work. What you needed wasn't more courage. What you needed was the presence of someone you trust, who has the capacity to protect you. And that's what Psalm 121 is doing. It's sitting on the edge of your bed and saying, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to watch while you sleep, and I'll still be here when you wake up. The surrender happens not through effort, but through trust. And trust happens not through convincing yourself of something you don't believe, but through becoming aware of something that's already true. This is why the practice of reciting the psalm matters, not because the words are magic, but because repetition trains attention. And where your attention goes, your nervous system follows. When you say out loud, I lift my eyes to the mountains, where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. You're redirecting your attention. You're lifting your gaze from the immediate threats to the larger context. You're naming the source of help, and your nervous system hears that. It registers it. Not all at once, not the first time, but over time, with repetition, it starts to believe it, because the body responds to what the mind focuses on. If you focus on threat, the body stays activated. If you focus on safety, the body begins to rest. But here's the key. You can't fake the focus. You can't just say words you don't mean and expect your nervous system to buy it. This is where the specificity of the psalm helps, because you're not being asked to generate a feeling. You're being asked to consider a fact. He who watches over you will not slumber. That's not a feeling. That's a statement. And you can consider a statement even if you're not sure you believe it yet. Try it right now. Just say it in your mind or whisper it out loud. He who watches over me will not slumber. Notice what happens. Not what you wish would happen. Not what you think should happen. Just notice. Does your chest tighten or soften? Does your jaw clench or release? Does your breathing get shallower or deeper? You might not notice anything. That's okay. The point is not to force a response. The point is to introduce a possibility, to let your mind and body consider, just for a moment, what it would be like if that statement were true. Now let's talk about the lie you believe at 3 in the morning, because if we're going to dismantle anxiety, we have to name the core belief that's powering it. And the lie is this: if I let my guard down, everything will fall apart. You believe that your vigilance is the only thing holding your life together. That the moment you stop scanning for threats, the threats will win. That if you're not constantly anticipating problems, problems will overwhelm you, that your anxiety is actually serving you, that it's the price of responsibility, that letting go of it would be irresponsible, dangerous, naive. And I'm here to tell you that's not true. But I'm also here to tell you that you believing it makes perfect sense. Because somewhere along the way, you learn that the world is not safe unless you make it safe, that people cannot be trusted unless you manage them, that your well-being is entirely dependent on your ability to control outcomes. Maybe you learned this because you were let down by someone who was supposed to protect you. Maybe you learned this because something bad happened when you weren't paying attention. Maybe you learned this because the people around you were anxious, and you absorbed their fear like a second language. However you learned it, it's deep. It's not just a thought, it's a posture, it's a way of being in the world. And you can't just think your way out of it. You can't logic yourself into feeling safe. Because safety isn't a conclusion, it's an experience. And you've been living in the experience of unsafety for so long that you don't remember what the alternative feels like. But here's what I want you to consider. What if your vigilance isn't actually keeping you safe? What if it's doing the opposite? What if the constant monitoring, the endless anticipating, the refusal to rest is actually creating more chaos, not less? Because here's what hypervigilance does. It keeps your nervous system in a state of activation. And when your nervous system is activated, you don't think clearly. You don't make good decisions. You react instead of respond. You see threats that aren't there. You miss solutions that are. So the very thing you think is protecting you is actually making you more vulnerable. The guard you're standing is exhausting you to the point where you can't actually defend yourself when you need to. This is the cruel irony of anxiety. It convinces you that it's helping, that it's the responsible choice, that letting go would be reckless, but it's lying. Anxiety is not wisdom. Anxiety is not preparedness. Anxiety is your nervous system stuck in a loop, perpetually bracing for impact, unable to distinguish between real danger and imagined danger. And the only way out of that loop is to transfer the vigilance, to say, I can't do this alone. I was never meant to do this alone. And there is someone who can do what I cannot do, someone who sees what I cannot see, someone who doesn't need to rest because he doesn't get tired. That's not passivity. That's not giving up. That's wisdom. That's recognizing the difference between your responsibility and God's responsibility. Your responsibility is to do the next right thing in front of you, to show up, to be faithful, to love the people in your care. God's responsibility is to hold the whole thing together, to see the big picture, to govern the outcomes, to watch over your coming and going now and forevermore. And when you get those responsibilities confused, when you try to take on God's responsibility, that's when you can't sleep, because you're trying to carry something you were never built to carry. Let me tell you what happens when you stop trying to carry it. When you finally, truly let the psalm do its work and transfer the vigilance to the watcher who doesn't sleep. First, you'll feel vulnerable, because letting go of control feels like falling. Your nervous system will resist. It will say, this is dangerous. We can't do this. We have to stay alert. And you'll have to gently, kindly, firmly say, I know you're scared. But we're not alone. The watching is being done. We can rest. And you might have to say that 100 times before your nervous system believes you. That's okay. This is training. This is repetition. This is the slow work of rewiring a system that's been stuck in fear. Second, you'll sleep better. Not perfectly, not immediately, but gradually, your body will start to believe that it's safe to rest. The grip will loosen. The hypervigilance will soften. And you'll find yourself drifting off more easily, staying asleep longer, waking up less jolted. Third, you'll live better, because the anxiety that's been keeping you awake has also been keeping you from being present during the day. It's been coloring everything with fear, making every decision harder, making every interaction more tense. And as that anxiety loosens, you'll find more space, more freedom, more capacity to enjoy your life instead of just surviving it. But here's the most important thing. You'll start to notice the watching. You'll start to see evidence of protection you didn't notice before, not because it wasn't there, but because you weren't looking for it. You were too busy trying to protect yourself to see that you were already being protected. You'll look back on a situation that could have gone terribly wrong, and you'll realize it didn't. And you'll wonder why. And you'll start to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, your foot didn't slip because he didn't let it slip. You'll go through a hard day, the kind of day that should have broken you. And you'll come out the other side and realize you're still standing. And you'll remember, the sun will not harm you by day. You'll lie down at night, and for the first time in a long time, you won't feel that clench of dread. You won't feel like you're abandoning your post. You'll feel held, and you'll remember, he who watches over you will not slumber. This is what transformation looks like. Not a dramatic moment, not a single epiphany, but a slow, steady awakening to a reality that was always there. The reality that you are watched over, that you are cared for, that you are not alone in the vigilance. Now I want to talk about nighttime specifically, because night is when everything gets harder. There's something about darkness that amplifies fear. That makes the same worries you had during the day feel insurmountable. During the day, there's distraction, there's activity, there's other people. Your mind stays occupied. But at night, when the world goes quiet, your mind gets loud, and all the things you've been pushing away all day come flooding in. This is why so many people dread bedtime. It's not just that they're tired, it's that they know what's waiting for them. That stretch of time between turning off the light and falling asleep where they're alone with their thoughts, where there's nothing to buffer them from their own mind. And the mind at night is brutal. It replays every mistake. It anticipates every disaster. It asks unanswerable questions. Why did I say that? What if this happens? What's wrong with me? How am I going to fix this? On and on, until you're so tangled up in your own thoughts you can't find your way out. This is the battlefield the psalmist is talking about. When the world slows and the day fades, your mind and heart can become battlegrounds. Fear, worry, and insomnia can invade your peace. What should be a time of rest turns into a time of struggle. So, what do you do when you're in that battlefield? When the thoughts are coming fast and nothing you try makes them stop? You don't fight them, because fighting thoughts makes them stronger. Telling yourself, "Don't think about that," just makes you think about it more. Trying to force your mind to be blank just creates more tension. Instead, you redirect. You give your mind something true to focus on, something stronger than the fear, something that can hold your attention without requiring you to generate it yourself. This is where the psalm becomes practical. When you're lying in bed and your mind is spinning, you start at the beginning. I lift my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? And you say it slowly. You feel the words. You picture it if you can. Mountains. Where does help come from? Not from me. Not from my ability to figure this out. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And, already, something has shifted. Because you've named a source outside yourself. You've acknowledged that there's a bigger picture than your immediate fear. Then you keep going. He will not let my foot slip. And you consider what that means for the specific fear you're having right now. The thing you're afraid is going to fall apart tomorrow. And you say, out loud or in your mind, He will not let my foot slip. Even in that situation, even in that relationship, even in that decision, He sees it. He's watching. And you keep going through the psalm, line by line, promise by promise, not rushing, not trying to feel something, just speaking the words and letting them do their work. And here's what happens. Your mind starts to settle, not because the circumstances have changed, not because you've solved the problem, but because you've given your mind a container, a framework, a truth larger than the fear. This is ancient wisdom, the practice of meditation on Scripture. Not meditation as in emptying your mind. Meditation as in filling your mind with something worth focusing on. Repeating it. Turning it over. Letting it sink deeper with each repetition. The Psalms were written to be repeated. They were written to be prayed. They were written to be the words you say when you don't have words of your own. When your fear is too big, or your faith is too small, or you're just too tired to generate your own hope. And that's okay. That's actually the point. You don't have to be strong enough to believe this on your own. You just have to be willing to speak the words and let them carry you. Now, let's talk about 3 in the morning, because 3 a.m. is when the wheels really come off. There's something about that hour that feels particularly dark, particularly hopeless. You've been lying there for hours. You've tried everything. And now you're exhausted and awake and angry at yourself for not being able to sleep and convinced that you're going to be a wreck tomorrow. And in that moment, the worst thing you can do is try to force yourself back to sleep, because the trying creates more tension, and the tension makes sleep impossible. And now you're in a spiral. So here's what you do instead. You sit up, just slightly. You don't turn on lights. You don't reach for your phone. You just shift your position to signal to your body that you're not fighting anymore. And then you say it. Out loud if you can. In a whisper. He who watches